Hello to my Padawans. I'm your Jedi Master today, and what you're about to watch is actually a clip from one of the discussions that I had with one of my buddies, Sci-Spy, who you probably already know from Noob vs. Pro. Now, this clip is from the podcast channel that I, along with my friends Sci-Spy and Hidden Flame, run. And if you are interested in seeing more, make sure to go check it out down in the description box below. All right, let's go ahead and get into this clip. So, Jedi Order. Me and you have discussed this many times.
Yeah, we've talked about this a bit.
And it's one of those things that it's hard to talk about this because since I do run a Star Wars channel where I talk about, I literally call myself the Jedi Master. So the ideology of the Jedi is, it's a good ideology. There is no emotion, there is peace, there is no ignorance, there is knowledge, there is no chaos, there is harmony, there is no death, there is the Force. Now, at a base level, that works because there should not be chaos. There should not be, of course, in Star Wars, they do believe that there is no death. There is that you become one with the Force.
Yeah.
So that's just a belief. That's just a belief. It's a religion, so it has a belief.
Well, and then some of the Jedi, of course, actually have the ability to become one with the Force.
Well, they all become one with the Force. It's just that it's called Force immortality is what you're thinking of, though.
Yeah. Yeah. And there's a small, well, I won't say necessarily a small few because they're all big characters that manage it. That's why you have all these Force ghosts.
Yes. But so the Jedi Order, these doctrines are good. Like being peaceful instead of being irrational and emotional. That's a good thing. Because that's what it did. There is no emotion. There is peace. That's what it's supposed to be. Be in your mind. Be peaceful. Don't be emotional. Because whenever you think emotionally, it leads to irrationality. And that as a doctrine works. And of course, there is no ignorance, there is knowledge. That's just intelligent. That's just a good doctrine, period. Like don't be ignorant.
Yeah, learn what you can when you can.
Yeah.
Pretty much.
And yeah, that's just a good doctrine in general. The problem is that the Jedi Order is a religion.
Mm-hmm. And as religion dogma goes, things get corrupted over time, and not so much corrupted, but the emphasis changes.
Yes, and the Jedi have a very dogmatic, particularly about the first doctrine. There is no there is no emotion, there is peace, and they try to teach to be emotionless. And because if you don't have emotion, it leads to peace. And there's a problem with that because this leads to a great many issues. And the Jedi are wholly to blame for Anakin's downfall. Let me just say that. Because of their dogmatic stigma, dogmatic doctrine, or dogmatic takes on the doctrine of there is no emotion and there is only peace. Anakin, despite how close he was to Obi-Wan, probably never felt like Anakin's a troubled person. Let's point that out. He's not the person that's been through the most shit in Star Wars. But he is a troubled person, and he never felt like he could talk to Obi-Wan because of the Jedi Order's dogmatic doctrine. And it's not the first time that we've seen that. in Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic, hang on one second. Lizzie, stop that. In Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic, we see that with the Mandalorian Wars, the Jedi didn't join in because they wanted to wait for some reason. And Revan, Mitra, a slew of other Jedi go to battle in the Outer Rim because the Mandalorians, you know, they're conquering the Outer Rim, killing people, taking over worlds. They're pretty much taking on the galaxy right now.
Yeah. Well, they're the Mandalorians, so that's a whole video for you later on. But
that's the Mandalorians' entire goal in life. They are warriors.
Yeah,
they're conquerors.
Their whole role is they're conquerors. That's what they do. Of course, they have their homeland planet of Mandalore. Yeah, which is where they think, but they still go out and conquer and fight because that's their lifestyle. They like to fight. They like to conquer. They're
very tribal.
I mean, if you look at it like a religion, that is their religion. They're like the Klingons, very much in Star Trek. They have this very war culture of warriors are the strongest and the best warriors get the best stuff and type stuff like that. And you have to fight well. If even in Viking culture is another estimate where Viking culture, the best warriors would go to Valhalla and such like that. And it's like you have that very much strong warrior culture.
And the best warrior becomes a Mandalore.
Yeah.
And he's responsible for leading the entirety of the Mandalorians. That's his role. And yeah, so they're conquerors, and you know they're doing a damn good job considering that the Mandalorians are significantly smaller than they're one of the smallest clans in Star Wars, might add. And so, you know, they're doing all this, and the Jedi just decide to sit and wait. Because they're not attacking the core worlds, which at this time the core worlds were significantly less, because not all the core worlds had been discovered yet, and what Atris says is that they didn't teach X, Y, and Z. They were trying to teach patience, and Mitra fires back with, well, what would have happened if they just took over the entire galaxy then? Because Mitra goes to war. And Mitra comes back because of the events that happened on Malachor 5. Now, I've already made my Mitra video. So,
yeah.
And I've also already made my Revan video. So Revan goes to war with the intent to help, and of course Malik, or Alec as he's known at that time, follows in suit because he's at Revan's beck and call 90% of the time. He's whipped. But
wow, they say that, and then number 2 was it not? Is both of them are against Malik? I can't remember if both are.
Do what?
Both KOTOR and KOTOR 2 are against Malik.
No, only Knights of the Republic 1.
Okay. Because I remember if both of them were.
Because Malik tries to make a power play and shoots Revan's ship while the Jedi strike team's aboard. Because he tried to make a power play before, and that's whenever Revan cut off his jaw.
Yeah.
Because if you guys don't know, from Revan. Yeah. He knew that he could not defeat Revan in lightsaber combat, so shoot Revan's ship while the Jedi strike team's aboard. And Revan's turn was a result of Kreia, because Kreia was his Jedi master. And of course, she was a Sith. She was a Sith afterwards. She became Darth Traya. Before becoming Kreia again and just kind of hating the Force in general.
Mm-hmm.
And that was the Jedi's failing too. Allowing, Revan to become corrupted. They also wiped his memory and programmed him with a new one. Brainwashed him, basically. Which is scummy at best. And
that's kind of where I'm sitting here like, and there's this what I would call not necessarily plot holes, but it's kind of like why moments in the movie or in the not the movie but the game of Kreia knew his identity. She knew who he was from the start because she trained him. He looks the same. He doesn't have his memory anymore. She could have told him everything, but decided
Grey's
not to.
In the first game.
Or she's in the second one, didn't she? Yeah.
Yeah, but Revan's not in the second game. Kreia
the whole point was the build up to becoming Revan.
No.
In the first game into the second game and such like that.
Dude, you really need to watch my videos on that of those games.
It's been a long time since I played. Or watched actually. I was in and out of the live stream, so
no.
But the whole thing with I remember the whole Darth Kreia or Darth Traya.
That's Knights of that's Knights of Republic 2.
Yeah, I remember that part. I remember beating the games. I don't remember anything about the games besides, oh, you go here and do this. Oh, you go here and do this. Oh, you go here and do this. It's like, okay. There's most of the stuff I don't remember, and I get a lot mixed up between the two. Because to me, they're both part of the same thing, as far as I'm concerned.
So here's the thing, Revan, you never play as Revan as a Revan.
Mm-hmm.
Everything about Revan happens prior to the Knights of Republic 1.
Mm-hmm.
So you are at the very beginning of the game supposed to be, unknown soldier number 5,264,000.
Mm-hmm.
But you're actually Revan with a reprogrammed identity. That's the big twist of the first game.
Yeah.
That you're Revan. And it's like a what the moment. It was the I am your father of my generation, basically.
Mm-hmm. It was and like you were saying, it's the whole they brainwash, reprogram him, and send him through. I guess he was being escorted somewhere.
Who, Revan?
And and the ship was attacked.
No, he was literally reprogrammed with the identity of a soldier.
Mm-hmm.
A Republic soldier. He was on board with Bastila, the Indar Spire, and they were on a Republic mission, and they get attacked by the Sith, go down to Terrace. He ends up having to rescue Bastila, so on and so forth. He becomes a Jedi again. One thing leads to another as they go through trying to discover the Starforge, or trying to figure out what the Starforge is, and where it is. And there's a point in the game where you get captured by Malik's ship, the Leviathan. And Malik uncovers that you're Revan. It's a moment of it's a really well done moment because it goes through like this entire thing of Karth going, they say that the Force can do terrible things to mind, can erase your memory and wipe away your very identity. And then Bastila says, what greater power is there than to be able to command one's enemies to their own will? And it like shows a bunch of flashes of, all the different planets, the star maps. It shows flashes of Revan, and then there's a scene where he's on Korriban, and it pans around and takes off the mask. It's your character.
Yeah,
it's like an intense scene, dude. Like it's one of those moments that it's one of those moments that you're just like, oh shit. And everybody that you meet who is an avid fan of that game, they still play it to this day, will know exactly where they were whenever that scene happened. It was about 2:00 at night for me. I don't even freaking know. This was like 2003, late 2003. So I was maybe 7. But it's like 2:00 in the morning, and I'm playing. I'm trying to beat it, and I get to that point, little 7-year-old me playing on a flat screen TV. Yeah, you guys, if you're younger, you won't know that is.
This has a flat screen. These are curved, but those has a flat screen.
Well, no,
you're talking about a CRT.
Yeah, I'm talking about a flat screen TV. It was, I think it was like an 18-inch flat screen TV. Like it was smaller than one of these monitors.
Yeah.
And it was also 4:3 aspect ratio.
Yep. I actually have a monitor. There's a 4:3 somewhere.
And I was playing it at 2:00. I get to that part. You fight Revan, or I'm sorry, you fight Malik. And that scene plays out, and I was just like, as a kid, I was just like, what? Because it's that moment of like, I'm the bad guy. So it was I am your father of my generation, pretty much.
One of the things that I didn't understand, and I'm sitting here like, is the fact that Bastila was captured so easily. But it's only because it's like you don't know until later how powerful she is. And she is incredibly, like, one of the most powerful Jedi at the point in the story that you're currently in. She is a literal grandmaster because of her battle meditation. But she is not strong as a Jedi by herself. She makes other people stronger. That is her power.
Well, the thing is that Jedi, or Bastila, because Bastila falls to the dark side during the game as well. Also the Jedi's fault, because Bastila is very headstrong, and and they push her. Now, granted, it is needed because has a connection to Revan, but they give Bastila, a neophyte Padawan, the task of pretty much making sure that Revan doesn't find out who he is, first of all. And secondly, making sure that Revan doesn't fall back to the dark side. No, I'm sorry. A Padawan, a neophyte Padawan, that's a pretty big undertaking. Taking down Dark Lord of the Sith, making sure that the Dark Lord of the Sith doesn't return, and basically putting into her hands of just make sure that Revan is continually brainwashed. That seems stupid.
Not only that, the whole thing of he got brainwashed, and the thing is, if he ever found out who he was again and got his power back, she would probably be no match for him. That's the thing. It's like if he ever had his power return.
Oh, he does. That's the thing.
I mean, he does, but it's the whole thing. It is the whole, if you have your power return, and you are one of the strongest Jedi / Sith in the universe, you would probably wipe the map with almost anybody there.
Well, the thing is that whenever he learns to be a Jedi again, he gets his power back at that moment.
Mm-hmm.
So the Jedi send Bastila along to make sure he never becomes, because he already has his power now.
Yeah.
And so they just try to make him basically be eternally brainwashed, which is stupid and scummy again.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, which is actually, the whole brainwashing thing actually goes against one of their tenets, too. There is no ignorance, there is knowledge. It goes directly against that tenet.
Yeah, but it's the Jedi, so if it's being done for the greater good, they're willing to do it.
Yeah, and I believe, I can't remember who it was that said it, is emotion is bad, but compassion is good. It's like you kind of need emotion to have compassion.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's the other thing. They want to practice compassion. They don't. And but they practice that emotion is bad. And Yoda's line is probably the best example of where, you know, fear leads to anger, anger leads to hate, hate leads to suffering. Fear does not lead to anger. The thing is that in that moment, because Anakin's supposed to be, you know, the prophet or whatever, he's trying to get help from the Jedi, and that's what he fucking fires back with.
Yeah. And yeah, wasn't it Anakin that's just straight up said, "I'm afraid"? Yeah. And then Yoda goes in with the bullshit like fear leads to anger, anger leads to hate, hate leads to suffering. It's like, well, no, fear kind of just jumps to suffering. It doesn't necessarily lead to.
And then we have to talk about the mother of all hypocrites, Mace Windu, who is a high-ranking, by the way, high-ranking member of the Jedi Order.
Yeah, wasn't a Grand Master though.
No. But very high-ranking member of the Jedi Order.
Yeah.
And he is the mother of all hypocrites. Literally in the scene where he's won against Palpatine.
Mm-hmm.
And the Jedi don't kill if an unarmed... they're not supposed to kill anybody who's unarmed.
Yeah.
And Anakin literally is there, and he goes, he says, "You can't. It's not the Jedi way."
Yeah.
He literally says, "It's not the Jedi way," because it's not the Jedi way.
Yeah.
And Mace goes, "Well, he has control of both the sentence and the course. He's too dangerous to be left alive." It's like, but it's not the Jedi way. Regardless of danger or anything like that, yes, he's the Dark Lord of the Sith. Yes, he has control of the Senate and the courts. But the thing is that Mace was trying to act as judge, jury, and executioner in that moment.
Yeah. And
the Jedi aren't supposed to be that.
But the Jedi often do.
Yeah, the Jedi often do.
They very much fall into the zealot slot, in very many cases.
Yeah, and it's the reason why the Jedi that, you know, people hold up to a big standard, Revan, Mitra, even Luke to a certain extent, they're not true Jedi. They're not the zealots. They're not the dogmatic nature of what the Jedi practice and everything. They understand. They know the doctrine. They understand the doctrine, but they rely on themselves. Anytime they're feeling emotional, they rely on themselves to keep themselves, from acting rationally.
Yeah, I don't. This is actually it's actually a lesson that Yoda didn't learn until after the Clone Wars.
Which one?
That the whole thing where you can't, basically the whole dogma aspect of it, because even he upheld it. Even Yoda upheld the whole dogma aspect when he was on the council. Once the Jedi fell in the Clone Wars, as basically a whole thing where all the Jedi in the universe were being hunted, and he went into hiding, he probably understood that we did this. It's our fault.
Yeah. Well, I mean, even Obi-Wan admits it. He said, because in the Battle of Mustafar, he says, "I have failed you, Anakin." He knows that at that moment that what happens was his fault. What happened was the Jedi's fault. And the same can be said about everything. I can never say his name right, so I'm not going to even try to. But the Nar Shaddaa Jedi from Knights of the Republic 2 and Master Kavar, who is the Onderon Jedi, that you find, both admit that Mitra was kind of in the right. She had gone to war to help people and had come back. She didn't continue pursuing war. The Atris tries to go, well, you tried to continue pursuing war, and Atris and Mitra have a very testy relationship. They're always those two fight with one another a lot. Literally, whenever she joins back up with Atris, it's literally the conversation in the game literally is like Atris tries to say something like dogmatic principle of the Jedi, and Mitra just constantly fires back with "You're wrong." Basically going, "You're wrong. I know what I did was right. I don't think I should." Basically going, I know what I did was stupid and reckless, but I know what I did was right.
Yeah. And actually, I think we also saw something of the biases of the Jedi. And this is when I was watching your playthrough or your live stream, where you meet back up with do you have Basil in your party, and you meet back up with
Karth,
the Mandalorian dude, and
Canderous.
Canderous. You meet back up with him, and Bastila says, "You're not going to go with this guy, are you?" It's like, well, we kind of have to.
Yeah.
He's our ticket out of here. You kind of want to.
Yeah.
It's the pure white versus not by dark-ish. He's not pure dark, but he's dark-ish.
She says, "We should leave. You don't have to associate with this person." Very snooty, very, like all Jedi.
Yeah.
Like the Jedi hold themselves so the problem is not only that, the Jedi don't really follow what it means to be a Jedi.
Yeah.
Because, and the entire thing with the Jedi as well is that they're not supposed to have this big fucking ego. They're not supposed to.
They're supposed to be more the monks side than the whole Catholic Church type side.
Yeah, they're supposed to be very humble. They're supposed to be very humble. They're supposed to be, they're supposed to be compassionate. They're supposed to help others when they're in need. And they're supposed to be able to have clarity during a moment of high emotion. Like, they're supposed to have that level of enlightenment. And they don't. They have a huge ego. Many times we see it Mace has the biggest ego of any Jedi. Atris has a huge ego.
Most of the people on the actual, like, the council have a huge ego.
Yeah.
Anybody who's gotten that high has a really big ego.
Mm-hmm.
And there are very few people that, and of the, basically the storyline, you know that you have Yoda, you have Mace. There's like 6 or 7 other Master Jedi on the council.
Yeah.
And a lot of them come in through holograms because they're elsewhere in the universe.
Yeah.
And it's just sitting here like, one, I don't know who half these people are. And 2, who are they to tell me that I can or can't do something?
Yeah, I mean, the fact of the matter is that, you know, even Yoda's probably the most Yoda's probably the most humble on the council, but he is so he believes in the dogmatic principles so much. He does not have the ego that Mace does.
Mm-hmm. He didn't have the ego, but his big thing is he has wisdom. Yeah. Because of his age. 900 freaking years old. Or he's near that by the time
he's nearly 900 he's nearly 900 by the time Empire comes around.
Yeah. And the thing is just like he has probably lived through several generations of council.
Yeah.
And it's probably been a Jedi for several of those generations. It's probably been a master for several of those generations.
And a Grandmaster for many generations as well, because he was the Grandmaster.
Yeah, because he was one of the top. He was the Grandmaster of that particular council.
No, the Jedi Grandmaster is the Jedi Grandmaster is the top of the Jedi High Council, which is who that was.
Yeah, and of course, and he held that role for a very long time, just because his race is very, 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 very long-lived. Humans had a hard time, even with Force blessing, living to, like Revan, living to like 300 years old. But beyond that, most humans at most live to 100. So humans will probably go off and on the council all the time. They're disposable species because they're highly populated.
Well, not only that, the Jedi's lifespan is significantly shorter than civilian in the Republic, because
they're basically their military power.
Yeah, they. I mean, Mitra dies whenever she's like 36.
Yeah.
So the fact
Luke was in his 60s, I think, but that's only because he went into hiding.
Yeah, Luke was in his 60s. Obi-Wan was in his 60s. So
I think Qui-Gon was probably in his 40s or 50s.
Qui-Gon was supposed to be in his early 40s.
Yeah.
So, you know, their lives are very short. The fact of the matter is that not only was Yoda he was also a Jedi consular. Mm-hmm. And consulars are known for having, like, studying the Force more than the aspects of fighting. That's what and a lot of Guardians study aspects of fighting. I believe that Qui-Gon was actually a consular as well, but he died prematurely because he actually died in a situation where he was not supposed to die.
Yeah, and like you said, Mace Windu was, or not Mace Windu, Darth Maul was extremely powerful at lightsaber combat for an apprentice.
Oh, yeah.
He was very strong in a form that they don't encounter very often.
Yeah.
So they don't have a way they don't really train against it. Even dual sabers they don't see used very often. Not to mention they don't use two-handed or both hands, but not as much as a staff, the dual-bladed staff. So yeah, that's definitely a fighting style that they probably hadn't run into before. He probably may not have ever fought somebody with that weapon before.
No, he didn't. Well, again, he's a Jedi consular. Consulars study the Force. That's their entire thing. They examine, they study the Force. That's who they are. That's what they decided to do. That's the aspect that they decided to go into. And he actually was studying Force immortality. So he was doing that. So while they might study lightsaber fighting, they don't become proficient in multiple different forms or anything like that. That I believe that if I'm not mistaken, I think Qui-Gon uses Sarisu or Form 3, which is a defensive fighting style.
The Obi-Wan was more of a guardian.
Obi-Wan was a Jedi Guardian. He studied lightsaber combat. He was highly skilled in Form 3, which is Sarisu. That was his style. Because it's considered the endurance. It's a defensive stance. It's the endurance form, and it's meant to basically wear down an opponent, basically tire them out.
One of the things with Yoda, especially, and any consular would probably fall into this category, is that they're well studied. One, they can see the Force, and I'm sure that Yoda could probably see it at will.
Yeah.
Which means he saw that there was dark.
Yeah, every single time he says it, he said he couldn't see Anakin's fate. He couldn't see the fate of the Jedi Order. He says the dark side clouds everything. So he always saw darkness. So he always saw. Because Palpatine is there, and like doing his 4D chess move. By becoming the Chancellor and wielding emergency powers, overtaking the Republic basically from the inside. Like seriously, 4D chess move right there. And because of the Council's arrogance, because of the fact that, they couldn't, because they're so arrogant, so egotistical, they couldn't see this happening. And Yoda could see from the start that the dark side clouds everything. He even says at one point that the dark side surrounds the Chancellor.
Yeah. But it was more of the whole Anakin thing, because Anakin was... basically, he was brought in and saying this kid has more midichlorian, a higher midichlorian count than anything else we've ever seen before. He is the Force, basically. And Yoda, and because of his, of course, lifestyle and stuff, he did endure a lot of stuff when he was a kid. He endured a lot of hatred. He endured a lot of suffering. He endured stuff and he was still a good kid when he was a kid. He was very loyal to his mom. He was good to his friends. Despite all the stuff that he went through, he was still doing what he could to be a good kid in all aspects. Then he was taken away from his mom. He wanted to go because he wanted to learn. But he was taken away from his mom taken to the council, and then the council said, or especially Yoda and Mace was more of a dick in this way. It's like, no, he will not be trained. He has too much darkness in him. I was like, that's your fucking job to save him then, because you're the Jedi. That's your fucking job.
Yeah.
Unless you want somebody that's potentially this powerful to go over there, which he does eventually.
Mace carries a lot of the blame. Of all the Jedi, he carries a significant amount of the blame. Like the fall of Anakin is the Jedi's fault, but Mace is because right before Mace goes to the Chancellor, he says something that when I was younger, I didn't even realize. It didn't even cross my mind until after the Clone Wars TV series came out. He says, "If what you have told me is true, then you have gained my trust." Meaning, Mace didn't trust throughout the entirety of the Clone Wars, which, is a good 3 years. Despite everything that Anakin does for Obi-Wan, everything that Anakin does, he didn't trust him. He only trusted him after he told him that he believed the Chancellor was the Sith Lord. And I would not doubt that put a lot of doubt into his mind, and that was all because of Mace.
And Mace is probably the main cause of Anakin doubting himself.
Yeah,
throughout most of the series,
and the Jedi are really, they should not have put somebody like Mace in charge, because one, like we said, Mace tries to be judge, jury, and executioner during the one scene. Mace also is extremely emotional. He gets very angry during many scenes.
He is kind of, he also falls kind of, I don't know, guardian is the right word.
He's a Jedi weapon master.
Yeah, but I was going to say more. He falls kind of like into, we play SWTOR. He falls more to the Marauder.
Well,
he's that run head first into combat when we'll kill everything in sight type person.
No, that's literally it's called the Jedi weapon master. He was also the keeper of the Order. But he was the Jedi weapon master. He was the most skilled Jedi in lightsaber combat within the Order. So he was basically a step above. He had studied the art of combat. So because the Guardians the Guardians study lightsaber combat. So consulars, they study the Force. That's their entire thing. They study the Force. They become very powerful in the Force. We see that in Yoda. Yoda's extremely powerful. And like ungodly amount of power. And so the Guardians are the side of the lightsaber combat. They study lightsaber combat. That's their entire thing. They become very skilled, very proficient in their styles. To become a Jedi weapon master, it means that you have mastered all forms of lightsaber. So I think it's 7. If I'm not mistaken, 7 forms. You master all 7 forms. So he actually had mastered all 7 forms. If he would have gone no doubt, if he would have gone toe to toe with Anakin, if Anakin hadn't cut off his hand, Anakin would have lost.
Yeah. Anakin was very much the Jedi Order was placed in a position where, especially after learning that he had the highest recorded ever midichlorians. I was going to say mitochondrias. And it's like, that's Parasite Eve. That's different.
Mitochondria is also like a real thing.
Yeah, I know it is, but if you play Parasite Eve, you know the mitochondria thing with the basically the transformations is basically very much falls into the Resident Evil aspect type thing. But midichlorians, if they could get him very much on their side and not have him turn against them, but it's basically they kept him at arm's length, and that was the problem.
Well, here's the thing.
Yeah.
Anakin is supposed to be a Christ complex or a Christ parallel.
Yeah.
But Christ parallel gone basically gone bad. Yeah. So the Jedi are again a religion. And Qui-Gon being very smart. Qui-Gon is, if Qui-Gon had not died, I do not doubt that Anakin would never have turned. But he died, so there's that.
Yeah, I think it was the two big deaths that affected him throughout his life were, at least up until near the end, were Qui-Gon, because he was one of the people that helped bring him to the Jedi Order, and that was when he was a kid, so that would have hit him a lot harder. And then his mother, when
Shmi.
he had to. Yeah, when he tried to go save her and wasn't there in time.
Yeah,
and I don't remember if he wasn't there in time because a Jedi held him back from going to save her.
No, so it's we'll talk about that later.
Okay,
but no, it was not. The thing is that without Qui-Gon there, he's supposed to be Jesus of Star Wars. He's supposed to be Jesus.
Space Jesus.
No, that's Shepard. That's Shepard. So of course the Jedi are a religion.
Yeah.
The Jedi did not believe him to be the chosen one until Qui-Gon convinced them of that. And so the Jedi, being who they are, they thought they saw the Messiah, but much like I don't know how much you've read of the Bible. Much like Jesus, how the Jews basically were the cause of Jesus' death.
Yeah.
The Jedi are the Jews. They doubted him from day one. Even if they did believe that he was the Messiah, they doubted him from day one. They ultimately caused his downfall. And that was all on them.
Well, there's a huge gap in time, huge gap in time. And if you're talking Bible, between the Old Testament and the New Testament. That isn't recorded. And of course the whole Jews thing was the Old Testament. It's very much that, and then there's a Torah, which is a modified version of that. And that's why I sit here well, there's a lot of different versions of the same story, which means none of them are true.
Well, no, I'm using this as a parallel.
But in parallel, the way that and this is something that probably happened over time. The dogma or the rules or the writings or whatever of the Jedi Order probably got, at some point, misinterpreted.
Well, yeah, we already know that because they said the Jedi believed that balance to the Force meant that the chosen one would make the Jedi. It would destroy the Sith and would make the Jedi the powerful, the all-consuming powerful. Mm-hmm. Which the story of the chosen one is really the balance within oneself is what it's supposed to be. I know that there's the little meme that you like to perpetuate of, he killed the Jedi, mm-hmm. And so it balanced it, basically joking because he balanced out the number of Jedi to the number of Sith, which is a cute little meme in the Star Wars community. But truly the chosen one's philosophy was to show the balance within oneself.
So he was supposed to return the Jedi to what they once were, basically.
He was
what they were supposed to be.
No, so the new Jedi Order. If you read that,
I haven't read anything in new Jedi Order, so
he basically, if my lore video explains all of this. And it's because my lore videos are very much based in the extended universe, not in canon.
Well, yeah, because most of the stuff that is lore was EU.
But through Anakin, Luke started the new Jedi Order, basically with a different doctrine. One that practiced true peace within oneself. It did not that emotion. And Kyle Katarn even says, Jaden, you have every right to be angry, but don't let that anger control you.
Yeah.
Basically saying, like feel your emotions, but don't let them, don't let that pervert you.
Mm-hmm. Feel your emotions, learn from them, but don't make them don't make them who you are.
Yeah. And that's
that
was what Anakin's full goal was, is to make the Jedi who they were supposed to be.
Yeah. Return them from
the egotistical, dogmatic, just zealots that they were.
Yeah. And I think that that fits very well with what they should have become. They lost their way, or the Jedi Order lost its way over the eons.
Yeah.
And it already had lost its way even back in the Old Republic Order. I mean, because they even then they were dogmatic, and they would not. Half the time they wouldn't even follow their own rules, because it's rules for thee and not for me.
Yeah.
Like, I can do whatever I want because as long as I say it's in the name of the Force.
Though the Old Republic Jedi were a lot more. They were a lot more about inaction.
Yeah.
They didn't act as judge, jury, and executioner, but they didn't act as judge or jury. They didn't even act as judge, the impartial party. They literally would sit and they were the bystander That's what they did in the Old Republic, which they're not supposed to do anyway. They're supposed to be the judge. They're not supposed to be the jury or the executioner. They're supposed to be the judge, the impartial party, the one that can see everything as it is, the clarity in the situation.
Yeah. And with their, of course, they can't really do like a forced truth, but as far as I know.
Oh, using the force to make somebody tell the truth, they absolutely can.
Okay. I know they have the mind trick thing, but I don't know if that was part of it.
No, that the mind trick's not, but they do have the ability to affect one's mind to force them to reveal the truth.
Mm-hmm.
Like the Jedi are, as you said, they go against it's rules for thee, not for me. The Jedi are not supposed to poke around in people's minds. They do, often.
Yeah. No, they should be able to tell, like, your... I know it's a stupid word, but aura.
Yeah.
So they can see how light or dark somebody is by... or at least depending on their level of skill, they could probably see on Will. I'm sure Yoda could.
Yeah, Yoda could.
See how...
He saw that the Chancellor was surrounded in darkness. He saw that Anakin was surrounded. But he thought that, of course, again, this comes from the arrogance of the Jedi. He thought that the Chancellor was surrounded in darkness because Anakin was surrounded in darkness.
As far as like young Anakin, because it was early on where they said, hey, he will not be trained. This is before he met the Chancellor.
Yeah, this is when the Chancellor was just a senator.
Yeah, so this is before he met Schnee. Freaking, that's a weird fucking name. Before he met basically Senator Palpatine at that point in time.
Yeah.
And so he was a little kid, and even then he just said he's too old, he's too afraid, he will not be trained. And it's like, well, make him not afraid. He's afraid because he's in a new place with people he doesn't know, and he's away from his family. Do you want to fix that? Or you just want to blame him for his issues?
But yeah, it's definitely one of those things that over the generations they got perverted, or they lost their way. And it's not really what they're supposed to do.
They place too much emphasis on some things more than others, and
yeah. And it led to so many different issues. It led to them exiling Mitra. It led to Revan discovering, which, by the way, Revan actually discovers the Sith ways during the Mandalorian Wars. That's how he turns, and that was due to the Jedi. The Jedi did not guide him properly, so he went to war, discovered the Sith ways, turned to the dark side. Brought a whole slew of Jedi with him, and thus began the Jedi Civil War. And they went, and even after all that, the arrogance of the Council, they went that there was something dark in him all along. It was his teacher to blame. It's like, but it's you to blame. You're supposed to guide him. You're supposed to guide all Jedi.
Yeah, and I'm not entirely sure how the new movies are going to be leading up to basically a new Jedi Order, kind of. But I know that she's not going to be, that Rey will not be doing the exact same teachings as the books say, basically.
Yeah.
Because she has her own interpretations of what the Force is and should be. Because she was taught a little bit before she ran into Luke. And he has his own interpretations of stuff, and he doesn't agree with the Council most of the time. Council. Basically, there wasn't a Council.
He didn't agree with the Jedi.
With a lot of the dogma side. Though he did see... But he tried a training camp. He did that, and fucking Ben happened, and that hurt him a lot.
Yeah.
So he gave up on that, and it was specifically like, I failed my best friend's son.
Yeah. Full stop. Hey guys, if you did enjoy this, make sure to go check out more over on my podcast channel that I run with my friends. Link will be down in the description box below. We do occasionally discuss Star Wars, but we also talk about stuff in life and gaming and technology. So if that sounds interesting to you, make sure to go check it out.